Welcome back to the Low Bottom High Rise podcast with me, your host, Moira Casaba. And I have a really fun new friend in the house. Cheryl Hunter is here on the show today. Cheryl, thanks so much for being here.
Moira, I'm thrilled. Thank you.
Absolutely. So when we connected and I read about the work that you do and just kind of your superpower in this entrepreneurial space, I just immediately, like, 1,000 questions came to mind, right? So I am so happy that we're having this conversation. So many questions for you, and I know from my audience today. But I want to just kind of intro who is Cheryl Hunter. So in your bio, it says you're a TV host, media personality, and you've literally been featured in every major media that there is. I mean, we're talking People Magazine, Dr. Phil, NBC, CNN, Fox, PBS, everything. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on, but this is what I love. This is what I love. Cheryl and her team of major media gatekeepers help mission-driven experts leverage the power of major media to get their message, story, and business known by millions. It lights me up because it's like you're the key in the door that can unlock not only kind of exposure for the messenger, but that exposure changes millions of people's lives through their message. So, what a fun position you get to be in.
Thank you. I mean, I think like so many of us as entrepreneurs, I created this based upon a need I had myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I I had something that I had a burning passion to
Yeah.
share with the world. And at the time, I was a network TV writer. I had created and sold original TV shows and series, pilots, etc. And I was somewhat connected, given I
Yeah.
worked in media as my day job. And yet, as I could see the power that major media had to shape our collective conversations and those things that we as a nation or a world are talking about at the same time, like the little girl falls down the well and everybody stops what they're doing to watch
Right.
and pray together and hope that she gets out and send support and whatever that those moments
Yes.
when we all are doing the same thing and media makes that possible.
Mm.
And I thought, man, if I could get my own message, my own work out in front of the world like that, it could make a profound difference. And
Yeah.
even though I was connected, it took me forever. And I dealt with this attention deficit, this
Yeah.
invisibility problem. I was like, it's like I'm behind a cloak of invisibility, but not
Yeah.
in a good way.
Right. And
You
I
know,
think I can relate to that so much. And I feel like probably every one of my listeners can relate because what I always want to honor is that whisper. I always say, listen to the whisper. And I feel like we all have this whisper deep down in our soul where we have those moments of clarity, right? Where we know what our purpose is, we know what our work is, we know what our message is to the world. But then you're motivated, right? So you're kind of out there hustling and you're just like, how the heck am I gonna like get this out besides trying to post on social media a million times a day and do Instagram
right.
stories and all the traditional things? And even for me, because I'm kind of like your perfect candidate, right? Because I've had this experience of having this in really incredible influence in pockets of the world. And I always sit there and think, wow, if this message resonated with this audience on such a
Yes.
profound level, I just know they are proof, that audience is proof that if I could get my message out, if I could reach more, that it would make the same difference in millions of people's lives, not just thousands. But how the heck do I do that? Right?
And that's the challenge as an entrepreneur now.
Yeah.
I remember my grandfather and my great uncles had businesses, and then my father went on to have the same business, but it, just you built a business back in the day, hung your shingle out, and people would say, "Oh, have you gone, downtown? There's a
Yeah.
new restaurant on Main Street or a new podiatrist on Union," or
Yeah.
whatever the heck, and people would find you.
Yes.
It's no longer that.
Mhm.
There's a client that I have who he's a dentist. He built a mouth guard that stops concussion, and he got
Ooh.
it patented. He got all the approval needed. He has longitudinal data that it's 98% effective in stopping concussion, just all this brilliant stuff. But he kept trying to sell it to
Yeah.
people, and he'd go into these boardrooms, and people would say, and just kind of dismiss him, and
Right.
they'd say, "Wait, but your mouth guard goes on the bottom. Don't you know anything? Have you not seen the NFL? A mouth guard goes on the top." And he
Mm.
said, "Yeah, that's exactly why the NFL has that many concussions. Here's
Right.
their concussion rate, and here's how many of them become debilitated, and here's 10,800 people have concussions a day." But he couldn't get them to listen and to understand. He couldn't educate them about the fact that he has something better. And he started working with us and got it created a real groundswell movement by getting local TV, which is interesting because
Yeah.
most people think they want national, but local TV around the country. And huge orders started to roll in. Sports teams from K through 12 to colleges to he's got pro teams, pro athletes. Now
Wow.
the US Armed Forces want to use this thing. I mean, it's
Mm.
it's massive. And he
Wow.
said the job that it took to become a dentist, to design this mouth guard,
Mhm.
to patent it, to test it, to manufacture it, to beta test it with people, to make sure that it worked, to cull all that data, to all of this, all of that took less work than letting people know he exists and why it's better. And I have to tell you, Moira, I that really struck me. I know I
Yeah.
had anecdotally my own experience of the vexation to have some solution for people that I wanted to provide, but nobody was listening. And I
Right.
had no way to get their attention other than, like you said, fiddling around, posting on social media,
Right.
and a couple friends from high school would go, "Hey, thumbs up." But it's like, or my mom, God bless her,
Yeah.
she would always say something nice, but I was like, "Okay, this is not moving the needle." But
Right.
it's like this Dr. Hutchison, the one with the mouth guard, he brought the real point home. As entrepreneurs today, our job is not just have expertise
Mhm.
or solve an old problem in a new and better way. That,
Mhm.
that's the floor.
Right.
Everybody, you've got to kind of come to the party with understanding. Yeah, if you're here, you should have already done those things.
Yes.
The fact
Yes.
that you're new, better, different, front edge of the bell curve, that buys you nothing. Now the game is how do you get recognized for that? How
Mm.
do you then educate your audience as to why your solution is better
Right.
than the traditional, outdated, ineffective solutions.
Yes. 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 That's the game changer. And I feel like most people, and I don't want to speak, I never want to put a blanket statement on anybody, but I would say that like my circles of entrepreneurs, they kind of see this media thing as like, oh, they got lucky. Oh, that just randomly
Mhm.
fell into their lap. Oh, they got on Oprah's favorite things. Oh, this randomly somehow they picked them up and they ended up on a list somewhere, and from that moment forward everything changed. But you're saying it doesn't have to be that. There's strategy here, there's a pathway here. There's really a proven method and strategy to be able to do that. So
Absolutely.
so where do we begin? Where
Well,
do you begin with people?
so I'm going to back up a little bit because
Yeah,
there's some fundamental misunderstandings like that. Like, oh, somebody just got lucky.
yeah.
Uh, there's misunderstandings about the way media works, and even though I was a network TV writer,
Mhm.
it took me a decade to get my own work out to the world. Now, I wanna just put a pin in this conversation for a brief moment,
Yes.
and I'm gonna tell a story in a short, super short amount of time. If anybody's interested in listening more, I've given 4 TED Talks, there's all kinds of stuff about it. But
Awesome.
as a teenager, I came from a really remote town in the Colorado Rockies. I grew up in a horse ranch. I wanted to get out and not just see the world. I wanted to live in a big city. It was
Mm.
my dream. I
Wow.
wanted to impact people. I wanted to meet people I wasn't related to by blood. Um, do something other than muck out stalls and ride horses and, milk cows every day. But so I concocted this big plan. I had a few odd jobs. I traveled with my best friend. We no sooner did we get to Europe than a man with a camera around his neck approached me, asked me if I was a model, said he could make me one if I just went off with him, and points over to this other guy. Now, in retrospect, that sounds idiotic. I was a teenager though, and I thought I was blinded by my dream of I must find a way to stay
Absolutely. Yeah.
here and live in the big city, and this could be my path.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm smart. I know how to wrestle a steer and drive a tractor trailer. I'll figure it out. They were criminals. They were traffickers. They
Oh.
kidnapped me. You can fill in all the gory details with your mind. They held me captive, tortured, abused, all the things you can think of. But afterward, once they set me free, I had to figure out how to live.
Mhm.
And when we face trauma, there is no going back to life like it was
Right.
before. But I quickly realized, look, I feel like I'm in hell, but I'm not the first person to go through adversity. I'm going to find others who've gone through worse, see what they've done to overcome.
Yes.
And I started interviewing war vets, Holocaust survivors,
Wow.
genocide survivors, anybody that had gone through true adversity,
Mhm.
and figuring out what worked, what didn't. I
Yes.
codified that. I turned it into a methodology, used it on myself. It worked beautifully. And then I started working with other survivors, trafficking survivors, survivors of violent crime, rape, sexual assault, all of these things. And to a person, it was working beautifully with them as well. And I recognized that adversity doesn't have to stop us, but rather it can be the catalyst for us having the exact life we love. I know you know this
Yes.
from your own story of overcoming.
Yes. So
And
much so. And it's and I just wanna pause on that because I know there's so many people out there struggling. Mine was addiction. Yours was, I think, even harder than that with what you've experienced. And so it doesn't matter where that struggle is on the spectrum. What people are doing is that's the reason they're not successful. That's the reason they're not succeeding. That's the reason they're kind of stuck. And you and I have discovered that that experience can be our superpower.
amen.
Yeah.
And I wanted to share that message with the world.
Yes.
Now, in the meantime, writing was one of the things I did that was therapeutic in helping me overcome. I started
Yeah.
journaling and ultimately writing and playwriting and built up an audience and had original work developed by television networks and studios and like that, and started selling things. And so I had this day job in major media, and simultaneously I was using my framework to help people overcome adversity to make a difference with people, and I wanted to put those together.
Yeah.
And yet again, took me a decade to get my own message out to the world, but I finally did in a large way. And once I did, Moira, I realized there's an entire industry
Mm.
dedicated to helping people overcome adversity. I'm going to step back now, leave that work to the mental health professionals.
Yeah.
I recognize I could make a bigger difference helping other mission driven experts share their message with the world.
Wow.
If it took me a decade and I was connected, people don't stand a snowball's chance in hell, as we used to say on the ranch, of getting out there. They just don't. So I pulled together journalists, TV directors, writers, producers, said, "Hey, I have a crazy idea. Tell me why this is stupid. I want us to gather around mission-driven experts and help them craft their messaging, help them become media trained, help introduce them to the right gatekeepers, help them build a presence and a platform in the world that's so substantive that they can truly change the quality of life on this planet for the people they serve. Why is that stupid? And they're like, no, that's why I got into media, every
Yes.
one of them.
Wow. Wow.
So that's what we created. But back to your question. So now I'm
Yeah.
taking the pin out.
Yeah,
Back
I
to your
I
question.
love the backstory we were briefly talking about before we hit record. The backstory is so important because it's the heart and the drive and the purpose and the mission behind you doing this work. And I keep thinking it's one thing to be the mission-driven entrepreneur that has a message like you were, but it's a different thing to be able to take one person and amplify them to
Mhm.
millions and then another and amplify them to millions, and so your work just ends up being 100-fold, 1,000-fold, a millionfold of what it was when it was just about your personal message.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's, anecdotally, I could see, okay, I'm a hick from Colorado, Rye, Colorado, cowgirl with, no, I felt at the time like no background in any of this. I mean, sure, my dad and great uncles and grandfathers, they were all, or they were all entrepreneurs, but
Yeah.
I what qualifies me? Well, I've done this. I've gotten out in front of hundreds of millions of
Mhm.
people, and I know major media, and so do my team. We know major media because
Yeah.
we make major media. But if I could go from being, unknown in a short period of time to building a multi seven figure a year business
Mm.
from just major media exposure, that's a metric. And I'm not saying
Right.
it for me, that measures something.
Mhm.
The amount of people served to their dream, who then are serving their audience to
Yes.
theirs. It's
Yes.
a measure of impact. And I realized there's a whole different game for each of us that
Mhm.
has a mission on our heart to be playing. It's
Yes.
not enough, again, to build the business and hang out our shingle. We've got to find a way to reach the people who are out there on their knees praying for what we have. And I consider
Yes.
it my sacred duty to empower as many people as possible
I love
to
that.
gain an audience, not spin their wheels having some way that could truly save lives, but nobody knows about it.
Right. 'Cause that doesn't do any good. I mean, and I
No.
think the leap a little bit here is sometimes there's obviously an investment, right? Because we might be investing in a bunch of little things with our business and we're not breaking through, but there comes a point where you kinda have to make a leap of faith, and I can remember about, gosh, probably 7 or 8 years ago, and it was really my breakthrough to 7 figures kind of season, and I just remember with desperation thinking, like, if you can just bring me the people, I will change. I will radically, radically change their lives. I know I can. But I was spending so much time. It's that dichotomy of like, I'm trying to spend all this time finding the people. So then it cuts down on my time that I can work with the people. And for me back then, it was Facebook and Instagram ads, totally different, season. It was a short season where it worked for a little while,
Yeah.
but as soon as I pulled that lever, everything changed, right? All of a sudden, there was all these people in front of me, and I got to do the work that I'm truly called to do in the world, which was working with them, and everything changed. The impact that changed, the income changed, everything. And so you gotta pull a lever, whether it's this one or that one. But this one, I believe your lever is the biggest lever I think you can pull.
The most precious thing today is attention. And
Hmm.
I'm saying this. I went out to dinner with my husband a couple nights ago, and there was this family next to us, and every one of them was on the phone. And no, disrespect,
Yeah.
but it's like the mom's trying to talk to everybody, and nobody's listening. So then she picks up their phone, and then the husband's trying to talk to the mom, and no, she's not nobody's listening. And that you're this one little microcosm, but it's that same way in the
Yeah.
marketplace.
Mhm.
We've got to find a way to position and edify ourselves and then reach and get in front of people. And when we do, say something compelling enough that people stop. They're
Mhm.
scrolling, they're thinking, they're daydreaming, they're whatever the heck they're doing,
Mhm.
and listen so that we can impact.
Yes.
And so, you'd asked me a question, what do we do? How do we do it? I'm
Yeah.
paraphrasing, but and I said there's some myths. There's, similarly running ads and having a sales team. People come in the door every day. And I listen to the calls and I use AI to cull everything that's said on these calls. And I did the calls myself for years to
Mhm.
find out, what are people struggling with? What do they want? What do they need? What can't they get?
Yes.
And there's this misconception that if I take what I'm trying to do to get in front of people, and for most people, it's posting on social media.
Mhm.
We'll ask, so what's your audience like now, and how engaged and active are they? How do you reach people? How do you let people know you exist today?
Yeah.
Generally, it's social media. Oftentimes, if, people are a business owner, they will triangulate that. They'll go, okay, I'm here. I've got social media. I've got uh, d paid ads, some kind of
Yeah.
marketing, they're doing several things, and it's the unison of those things that's helping.
Mhm.
But it's we'll ask, "Well, why and where do you wanna be? What kind of reach do you wanna have, and why isn't that working?" I'm not asking questions that are brain science here, I'm just
Right.
trying to get a read on what's actually happening. And people will say something like, "Well, I'm posting on social media once a day or twice a day or 5 times a week," or what have you. And why isn't that working at the level that you'd hoped? Or I'm running ads for this, $1,000 a day or $1,000 a week or whatever it is.
Right.
Why isn't that working in the way you'd hoped? Oh, wait, what are you saying? I need to do it more?
Right. Right.
And these are smart, savvy people who
Yeah.
founded a business, who
Right.
have bona fide expertise.
Yes.
And they think, I'm just going to take what's not working and do more of it. I spoke to a pediatrician, and she had a newborn, well, less than 7 months or something like
Yeah.
this. And she would come home, work all day as a pediatrician. You can only imagine the grind. Come home, have a brief amount of time with the baby, put the baby down, have dinner with her husband, and then go spend not kidding, 4 hours a day on social media.
Oh, whoa.
And at the end of our conversation, I'm like, "So what are you going to do now?" I mean, it's
Right.
brilliant, the stuff she had come up with to revolutionize pediatrics. She goes, "I think I need to double down and maybe spend 8 hours a day on social media." I'm
Mhm.
like, "Oh god,
Nobody wants to do
you're a
that.
doctor." Yeah.
Nobody wants to do that. I mean, it is. It's all attention because I had a mastermind a few years back, launched it to wild success, right? Wild success. My audience was kind of just waiting for it and hungry for it, I think. And then the next year I relaunched it and I was like, what why did this not work? It took me a moment, but it was like because I didn't have any new eyeballs, right? It was like
Mm.
I hadn't expanded my audience and it seems so simple. And then you're looking at the 18 different reasons why the launch didn't work as well. I'm like, well, because I launched it to the exact same market and I had kind of saturated it in the first launch. Like the people that could pay that price that were ready for that level said yes the first year. Maybe a few of them were yes in year two, but unless you're getting new people and expanding and gathering more attention, even if it works the first time, it's not going to continue to work.
That's
Yeah.
such a good point, right? With so much to pay attention to, how do you pierce through that noise?
Yes. Yes.
And then how do you authentically reach somebody in their heart once you do?
Yeah.
One of the most important things, you asked about, how do we do that? How do we gain media? One of the most important ways to do that, in addition to the right kind of messaging and knowing how to speak in sound bites and media training and having initial media,
Mhm.
because major media is a catch 22. You can't get major media unless you have major media.
Right.
There's a lot to navigate. I didn't know
Yeah.
any of that. It took me a decade. But one of the most important things you can do is share a compelling brand story.
Mhm.
And for years after the whole kidnapping happened, I felt like I was damaged.
Mm.
I'm sh I'm imagining you can relate. Like, I felt there was something
Absolutely.
shameful about me.
Shame, scarlet letter, you keep that hidden. Yeah.
And if anyone knew, God forbid, they would have no respect for me. They would feel like I was so idiotic to have gone in the first place. I was dirty, filthy, used up. All these decisions I made as a teenager with no ability to cope, right?
Yeah.
No real coping skills or emotional intelligence as a teenager who was dealing with that. And I
Mm.
just hadn't changed those core beliefs yet. And at first, I was trying to share this framework with the world. I wanted to share a
Mhm.
message that adversity can truly be a catalyst for
Mhm.
us having the exact lives we want rather than
Mhm.
an impediment. And people were like, huh, okay. Well, wait, are you, so you're a psychologist or like,
Right.
like in the media, they're like, so do you run like a recovery center? Or, they were trying to figure out who the hell are you? And I was like
Yeah.
tight lipped about my own story. Hell no, I'm not sharing that. People will know I am stupid and gullible. And finally, I was like, you know what? Screw it. This is stupid. I'm no longer a child
Mhm.
trying to protect myself against what I imagined would be an onslaught of criticism
Yes, yes,
from
yes.
people who I thought would say, why did you not stay and see
Right.
justice served and these men put in prison? I didn't. I ran for my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? I'm adult. I can handle those conversations now. I can handle anything that I thought I couldn't handle as a
Yeah.
teenager. Now I can. I will deal with whatever comments and questions I
Mhm.
get. I
Wow. So
must share the
empowering.
story. And suddenly doors started opening up. There
Yeah.
was a point, there was a context.
Mhm.
And for each of us, there's a reason behind why we do what we do.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, human nature will try to downplay that, hide it, portray it in a particular way that makes us look like something
Yeah.
that's perhaps a little distinct from who we are. It's wildly different from true authenticity and
Yes.
connecting from the heart.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
There's a husband and wife who came to me during the pandemic, Danny and Karen. They're college planners from Atlanta. And they came because they said, the college planning whole industry has gone to hell.
Yeah.
Kids don't wanna go to college because it's not in person, and they don't wanna acquire all that debt.
Right.
And
Right.
there's all this mixed studies about the efficacy of online learning, and parents don't wanna send their kids for the
Mhm.
same reason. Why would they accrue all that debt? Plus, what if they, heaven forfend, start meeting in person again? They didn't want their kids to be in that environment. They
Right.
didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
They said, "We've gotta turn this around. We've been in business for over a decade, and we're about to shutter." So, we started working together. The husband said, I may want you to sign an NDA." I was like, "All right, tell me why. What's the deal, Danny?" Now he's public about this
Yeah.
now, which is very comical. But he at the time said, "My own story. I can't share this." And I was like, "Okay, I'm listening."
Yeah.
That's very compelling to start
Yes.
with, right? And I
Yes.
said, "Okay, so what's your story?" And he said, "I never went to college."
Oh,
"Wow, tell me more." "I'm the quintessential son of an immigrant. Filipina mom, 5 kids, father had passed away, we couldn't keep food on the table.
yeah. I'm not
We
the
all
Harvard
had
grad that
jobs,
I think I
but
should be. Yeah.
right, and he said, "So, all these other college planners have got these great college degrees. I never even went to college." I said, "So, but why did you found this company?"
Mhm.
"So that no other kid had to go through the
Mhm.
situation that I did, and so that no other parent has a child with huge potential who
Yeah.
can't fulfill it because they can't get the
Yeah.
education that the marketplace demands. And I was
Yes.
like, "Okay, far from signing an NDA, we're gonna lead with this."
You're like, "We're
Get
gonna do
used to
the
it.
opposite."
And it's they transformed their business
Wow.
and just got featured everywhere, and they expanded to 6 other states, hired 28 of their competitors to
Mhm.
come work for them and be college planners for them. It's remarkable, and
Wow.
it's that power of story and
Yeah.
leveraging the right story well told that
Yes.
makes people say, "Look, there's 1,000 or way larger group than that of college planners out there.
Mhm.
Do I
Mhm.
want the one that's got a great degree? Maybe. Or the one that says this remarkable story and no other child will have to die with their potential still
Yes.
inside of them. I mean, I just get moved
Yes.
speaking about it. And absent a story, we become a commodity.
Right, right,
And the
right.
moment we're
Absolutely.
commoditized, right? We're commoditized, people do what? They price shop, they
Mhm.
try to find a cheaper deal or
Right.
something that's faster. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
great. Do you wanna play that game? The game to 0?
Right. Right. I mean, I'm thinking about all like I mean, so many of my favorite humans on planet Earth, so many of these, mega influencers, it's because they've been brave enough to share the real story behind who they are. And you fall in love with them and you trust them, right? There's a credibility. And even for me, I mean, I definitely had the same journey. I love to share because I laugh at myself. I can remember when I started, on social media, big dreams of being successful as an online entrepreneur. And a friend of mine who was in recovery as well said, "Hey, why don't you ever talk about your sobriety?" And I was like, because it's anonymous. Like, I was, like, aghast that she would even ask me that, you know? And what the it took time, right? I didn't rip the Band-Aid off and do it overnight. I did it little teeny tiny baby step by baby step, but I didn't understand that in the process of shedding those layers and coming clean with the world of with who I really was, that all of my power and my dreams was going to come from that place. And I always share I was, recovering alcoholic, recovering bulimic. I'd gone through tragedies, all the things. And so if you think about it, I would walk into the world or I would walk into the grocery store or a basketball game or a party and no one knew. And my thought was just like you said, if they knew, if they knew they would judge me, if they knew they would criticize me. And all of a sudden, I will never forget when I was finally being bold enough on social media to share it all. Somebody came up to me in the grocery store, kind of like, "Are you so and so?" Tears in their eyes, so much gratitude. But what I remember thinking is, "Yes, I am. And you know everything about me." And the freedom and the confidence, right? I can remember walking into a gym with my kids playing sports, and my biggest fear was, if people find out, but all of a sudden I would walk in and be like, "And here I am, people," like there's
Yes.
nothing to hide anymore. And what I thought was going to push me into the ground just blew my confidence and just my self-esteem up in the best of ways. And I know it doesn't seem like it should, but that's the journey that sharing your story, the gift that it gives you. It's everything.
It's absolutely cathartic
Mhm.
and bonding for other
Yes.
people. It doesn't have to be traumatic. You mentioned something earlier that was brilliant about a spectrum. There's adversity or challenges or even determination. I
Mhm.
think every entrepreneur at one point has a thought, it doesn't have to be this way.
Mhm.
There's a better way.
Mhm.
And we build a business and a brand to be the solution to that. But if we only share that, hashtag boss life, sitting out on the beach with a laptop. Wait, what? I'm like,
Right.
I've literally tried that. I live in Southern California at the beach, and I'm like, I'm gonna take my laptop out there. I'm like, oh God, everything's gonna get covered in sand. I
You
can't even
can't
see
see
the
the screen,
screen.
doesn't
I'm
work.
like, wait, what? How are people doing that? Maybe it's bullshit. I was like, it was revolutionary to think that, and I thought, am I the only one who's got flaws? Am
Right.
I the only one that's having challenges? But the moment you mention whatever it is, the what's authentically happening,
Yeah.
suddenly others see themselves. We see
Yes.
ourselves, we can let our own hair down,
Yes.
our own striving for perfection can cease to exist, and we can authentically connect.
Connect, connect. That's what was just on my heart. I think the greatest human desire is connection.
Mm.
And when we are hiding our story, it is such an isolating place. And when we all of a sudden connect with those people that have a similar story or can relate, I mean, there's very few feelings in the world that are greater than that connection. I mean, I see it all the time in recovery, people that have literally faced death and come back from it from an addiction. It's just like there's an unspoken bond that you can't put words to. And that on some level is what you get when you share your story with the world. And so, gosh, how in the world we don't even have that much time left on this podcast. I'm curious, and I know that there is so much work around like kind of you've said it several times, making sure the story is shared kind of in the right way and the messaging kind of hits and lands, and you can't just kind of go, okay, I guess I'm going to share my story. There's an art to it, right? And that's what you guys do such a good job of helping people develop. But I think my question then now comes is like, okay, so my audience, a lot of them probably feel like, okay, I hear you and I am sharing my story and I could probably share it maybe a little bit differently or better. But where is that leap to like media? How do you do that for your clients?
So, just to be clear, because sometimes people misunderstand, I want to say something about
Mhm.
sharing the story. It doesn't have to be traumatic.
Right.
The lion's share of my clients have never had anything traumatic occur.
Yeah.
And I don't mean trauma sharing or that kind of weird one upsmanship with, oh, you think that's bad? Well, listen to this.
I love that
It's,
you said that. I love that you said that so much because I think that's the other piece. And it's kind of funny because when I started sharing my story, I would be mentoring people and they'd be like, well, you're lucky. I mean, you're a bulimic, you're an alcoholic. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But it is people fall into that trap of I don't have a horrific past, and it's like, no, 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 no. That's not what I'm saying. I can connect with people that have long torsos. Like, you know what I mean?
that's a perfect example. I think it's that aha moment, the moment of change, the moment of decision, the catalyst that made you say, there's got to be a better way, whatever that is, revealing that is a compelling element of story.
Yes.
So there's having a compelling story. And then there's also if you do have something traumatic, like for me, it was trial and error at first. Luckily, I knew how to write. I mean, like I said, I wrote network TV, but I at first shared my story in such a way that left people concerned and worried for me.
Mhm.
And I had to find a way to share it and have people be left with the victory and
Yeah.
their own ability of me, but their own ability to be victorious over
Yes, yes, yes,
adversity. It's the ability for others to hear themselves in your story that you're going for
yes.
and the ability to distinguish and differentiate yourself from the pack. So
Mm,
the story is something fundamental that must happen. That whole world of messaging must happen.
mhm.
Um, then there's that must be in place.
Yes.
Then there's bona fide expertise because what people get invited to speak about in the media is not their business and, "Oh, aren't I great? I
Right.
created a shoe insole that it helps people with fallen arches." No news program in the world is gonna call you on to do that. That's for infomercials,
Right.
paid media.
Right.
And
Yes.
people have a big misunderstanding about that. "Oh, well, I'm a nutrition coach. I help, uh, teenage girls drop 13 pounds that they gain in their freshman year of college." I'm making this up.
Yeah.
But you're not gonna get on TV to talk about your methodology for doing that. You're gonna talk about the problem with social media and bulimia or,
Mhm.
anorexia or eating disorders or whatever's already trending in the
Yes.
news.
Yes.
It's you have to learn how to that whole phenomenon of tying your expertise to news cycles is is essential. Look, there's flat
This is
out.
fascinating. I feel like you get this so well, Cheryl, that like this is obviously what you do so well every day, but you just landed on something that is blowing. I mean, that what you just said is blowing my mind. That I think people think I'm going to get what I'm selling, the
Yes.
framework that I developed, the methodology on Good Morning America, on this,
Yes.
on that. And you're right. That's not what anyone is ever on there for.
Never, and, that's the most fundamental misunderstanding.
Yes.
There is paid media out there. It's called an infomercial, but people think and some networks allow a certain number of paid media spots. They all have a disclaimer. The following is a paid presentation for so the
Right.
ab roller or whatever. But people think they actually think, well, so okay, I'm going to get on and talk about my vitamin brand. Not
Right.
in a million years.
Right.
Good Morning America is never going to have you talk about your vitamin brand and why it's better than what's on at for sale at GNC or some damn thing.
Right.
Never.
They
But
will
they
bring you in
can.
as a health expert with whatever's trending
Yes.
in the media.
You can talk about the obesity epidemic or whatever is the newest iteration of that, or some celebrity that has a physical breakdown or something like this. But
Right.
if you are able to do that in a masterful way, share your expertise as it relates to things people already care about or are talking about,
Mhm.
your audience will beat a path to your door.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
why our clients are able to then, sell hundreds of thousands of mouthpieces, those concussion mouth
Yeah.
guards. It's why they're able to do that, not because they just talk about the mouth guard.
Right.
It's
Right.
because they talk about the impact of concussion and
Right.
that you must protect your children as back to school is happening now as they're getting into sports.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes so much sense. I mean, you're literally putting the puzzle pieces together like I just haven't heard it explained this way. And I mean, it's just brilliant. Yeah, because your client is on the show because he's a concussion expert or he's the sports person, sports expert. And then just so happens people are going to find him and then they're like, "Oh, thank God he actually created something that can actually
Yes.
solve this problem." Yes.
Every parent watching goes, "Wait, I need this," and so
Mhm.
does my kid's team, and
Yes.
so do all the parents as that of the other kids on the team. This is what helps galvanize an audience and
Yes.
create a groundswell movement. Now
Yes.
there's, like I talked about earlier, there's hundreds of thousands of or however many, thousands of college planners out there.
Yeah.
There's thousands of publicists out there.
Right.
They all, they'll, you come in and go, "Oh, I would like to do TV," and they'll try to get you on TV or something. Because I've done so much media and work in major media, I thought, you know what, there's a better way.
Yeah.
What doesn't work about traditional PR is that there's no media training. I hired a
Right.
lot of publicists and I got out there and it was like, what am I doing? I don't know. Like you see the people on the news and they're like, coming to you in the field, Tammy, is it storming out there? And they're like, Tammy, 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 can you hear me? Can you hear me? And she goes, oh yes, Dave, I do hear you. Sorry. You don't know how to use one of those damn
Right.
IFBs, mics. You don't know what you're doing. We media train people.
Yeah.
We most publicists try to keep you separate from the gatekeepers, and if you do book anything, they send a proxy with you to have conversations with them because they don't want you to form any relationship with the anchor or the interviewer. I'm like, okay, that no. That's just stupid.
Yeah.
You're a grown adult, you should be having conversations with these people
Oh
and
my
building
god.
authentic relationships. That's
Yeah.
why they wanna have you back over and over again.
Right.
So we built our whole business based around introducing you to those people
Ugh,
so that you get to know the producer of Good Morning
right.
America and your local Fox News station and your local ABC affiliate and CBS News affiliate. It's just different. Other people, publicists would say, "Well, that's stupid," and I'm like, "Okay, fine," but there's something right for everybody.
Yeah. And there's something right about the way you do it.
Well,
Let's not miss that.
thank you.
You know?
I think our clients have huge success, and I like to think it's because we media train them.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
because we put them in front of the right gatekeepers. It's because we help them craft their messaging in such a way that it speaks to people's
Yeah.
hearts.
And on top of that, you are nurturing the relationships instead of holding them back from it, which in our hearts, I mean, hello, that's just good work in the world, you know?
Moira, it's like you said, we all crave connection. Why
Yeah.
would I keep the connection from
Right.
them? That's antithetical to what we're striving for.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh, this is so good. You're hired. I'm like, as soon as we hit stop record, I'm gonna be like, okay, so how do I hire you? But I want to leave the audience with this. Well, first, before we do that, is there any other piece that you want to share before we wrap up all of the magic that you have already shared?
You know, there are a million reasons why people will say it's impossible to do what you wanna do.
Mm,
I firmly believe that if we've got a dream in our heart, we've got what it takes to fulfill it. It's just about finding a way
yeah.
to let people know that we've got that answer, we've got that solution.
Mhm.
Because I firmly know that every problem that faces humankind today could be solved
Yes.
if the brilliant people out there with those solutions
Right.
had a platform and exposure and could tell people, "I got this."
Yes. 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 That is beautiful, beautiful. And that is so much an extension of the work that I do. You know, I think when I ask people, what would you say my superpower is? And I've done that exercise with lots of people, and they say, you're a belief builder. Like you just have this crazy way of building belief. And it's because I believe what you just said. It's like, it is possible. Like, if it's in your heart, it's meant to be for the world. Like,
Amen.
please do not listen to the naysayers or society or the doubt that creeps up, and let me give you all the tools that allow you to break through and build that belief so that no matter what comes in your path, you keep pursuing it. And you are such a huge piece, Cheryl, of pursuing that and breaking through for these people. So I'm so grateful that we've met. I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing in the world. And just keep going, sister, because it is much needed.
Moira, thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Cheryl, for being here. You guys, I will drop every way to connect with Cheryl and her company in the show notes. So it'll all be there. I'm guessing well, do you want to share Instagram, website, any of that?
Yeah, my website is cherylhunter.com, and it's CHERYL
Mm,
Hunter, and, everything is there, links to social, all of it's there.
perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you for that. Everybody, go check Cheryl out. I would encourage you to share this episode with your friends, with your team, with your company, whoever you need to. And again, thanks for joining, and we will see you next week.